Hey, Shadows.
Hi.
Hi.
So we just finished watching Zach Bagans' documentary about the Demon House, and we're here to kind of give our opinions on it. It's quite interesting. We have the fact that only the last 10-15 minutes or so was actual investigation.
Yeah, it's like an hour and 20 minutes of boredom.
But research.
Yeah,
A lot of interviews with certain people who were involved in the original case.
Lots of jump cuts.
We saw Barry Taft
there
investigating, who isn't, well, he's known mostly for
parapsychology. Yeah, he was the guy who did the entity case. He was the head of the UCLA parapsychology lab back in the 70s and early 80s.
So if any of you guys have seen it, would like to see your comments, see what your opinions were. What's striking about this case is that it held very similar things to when we investigated 30 Drive in Yorkshire, in England.
Yeah.
There are a couple of notes that I had. First, carbon monoxide. That is known to cause hallucinations, headaches,
make you sick, and things
visual
like
problems.
That, yeah.
Which was mentioned at the beginning of the documentary and not mentioned again. First of all, I want to say it's not very safe if there's evidence of carbon monoxide to be
investigating it,
boarding yourself up in it.
Oh my God, yes.
Which could cause some health problems that they're saying, like Zach saying he has now got visual impairment due to being in the house. Also, Barry Taft had medical issues straight after. We do know that Barry Taft has had medical issues in the past too. So that can attribute to it. I'm saying that, before you investigate a place like that, check it for carbon monoxide, because it's not safe and can affect your health.
I think we need to buy a carbon monoxide detector.
Yes.
Like ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's something every paranormal investigator should have in order to try to find false positives.
I've got to say that the investigating they did on the history, talking to witnesses, that's very good. That's what you would expect from somebody who's doing a thorough investigation on a location.
Yeah.
Nothing much happened when Zach was investigating alone in kind of the last 15 minutes of the film. So they didn't really catch any evidence. Also, I have issues because we didn't see Zach, whilst he was investigating the house, using any kind of equipment to investigate with. He didn't take any EVPs, he didn't use his usual spirit box.
He just kind of got very angry.
Which is all things that we cannot prove as investigators.
Yeah.
Exactly. He didn't even have a K2 device or anything in that motion to detect electricity. So I don't think it was a thorough investigation. Also, never investigate on your own. It's just not safe. It's not responsible.
Always go to.
Also, if you're investigating on your own, you have no witnesses to make your claims credible. We know that, there are certain things going on behind the camera that we may not know about. There could have been somebody else in their house too. But we just don't know because we never see what's going on behind the camera. Us all as investigators, we can't claim our evidence to be 100% correct because you just don't know until you're there, eyewitnessing it yourself, So a lot of things can happen behind the camera that they're not telling you about. It doesn't happen with us, but I'm just stating that as a fact. Certain incidences in the documentary kind of rang a bell in our heads.
Yeah, absolutely. When we went to 30 East Drive, Robyn kind of, she doesn't remember doing this, but she was walking around in a daze. And
I remember being in a daze and walking around and not really sure where I was going or why I was going and why I was moving. I kind of got up in the middle of a group investigation in 30 East Drive in the front room. And as I got to get up and walk away, the other door opened and slammed, and we had about 7 witnesses in that room at the time when it happened.
Yeah.
So bizarre things were happening whilst I was in my daze. So the cameraman had the experience, right?
Yeah, the cameraman.
And was affected afterwards.
Affected after.
First of all, we don't know who this guy is. Did we get a name from the
No, I didn't see a name. We could probably look that up though.
So we don't know whether or not his behaviour is credible, because we don't know whether or not this man is credible. But there are certain things that happened. A lot of people started falling ill after being on the show, after being in the house.
And that's really fascinating because my health has not been the same since 30 East Drive. So that really resonated with me. I think when you go into a place like that and you're not prepared, then, you're taking a risk. And, whether this documentary was true or not, and I'm not sure if it is or not, but there are certain things that were in the documentary that really rang a bell with me.
And me also.
Yeah.
But was there any viable evidence that was caught on camera?
No.
The shadow mass that appeared in front of the screen.
You gonna try it?
Where is the camera?
I'm not sure where the camera is. Right there? There you go.
Okay, so
Try this.
in the dark, that's all I think it was.
There you go.
Yeah, and it would have been in the dark, so it wouldn't be illuminated like your finger was there.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, I couldn't find any evidence of this guy who claimed that. I don't even know what he said. It didn't.
What, but the
expert.
The expert, yeah. We were looking him up and we couldn't find him. So if you know who this guy is, like send us a link or something. We were trying the whole entire time. We were pausing it and watching it and pausing and watching it, looking things up and.
I mean, his whole reason for thinking that it was real was because it was solid. Hands are solid. Just saying.
Yeah.
He didn't use the right language that an expert would use.
Yeah. If any of you tech guys, if you understand any of what he's saying, please leave a message in the comments.
So,
what What about from just a filmmaking standpoint? Let's whether it's credible or not, I don't know. But as just a film, what did you think?
it was very slow.
Yeah, the pacing was really off.
But, they're not known for being filmmakers. Usually when they're doing Ghost Adventures, they have a whole team behind them.
Yeah.
But this just had a select few people.
Well, it's directed by Zach himself.
Who was it written by? Was it
written by Zach himself.
So that shows you...
Jeff Bellinger wasn't involved, and, you didn't have the regular people. And I'm not a Ghost Adventures fan, I'll say that. I watch it, but Ghost Adventures has really good pacing.
Yeah. And you notice that with the script also in this one.
Yeah, the script of this, yeah.
From a filmmaking point of view, he talks... he dumbs it down a little in his language. And to me, it feels like it's aimed at the people who follow the paranormal but aren't necessarily experts in it.
Well, I think... what he's doing, he's trying to make it for the general audience, and he's trying to also make it international, which is interesting. I don't think it'll go that far, honestly, but that's what he was trying to do. He was kind of dumb down the language a little bit.
Certain behaviours were odd. The scene, if you guys have seen it, the scene where Zach pushed one of the other guys. If it was full-on aggression that he pushed this guy with, he wouldn't have circled the room. He would have just pushed the other guy against the wall. It kind of went, the guy was here and Zach pushed him, but he pushed him around the room and up to a certain point. Now, if you've got full-on aggression, you're not going to see what's in front of you. You just push them against the wall, right?
Exactly.
So, this, I think, is a case of what ghost adventures are guilty of anyway. Exaggeration. And using EVPs that they have and just assuming it says something. So, whilst the EVP is playing, they'll put little subtitles what they say it says. And of course, as soon as you see that in your mind, you're trying to make that fit into what you're hearing on audio.
Yeah.
Which, I hate subtitles on EVPs, because EVPs, you want everybody to hear what you're hearing, and that can't be guaranteed because the thought is already in your mind. So
EVPs are subjective.
I think that this is a case of exaggeration and upplaying certain aspects. But we saw things in it that kind of reminded us of our experience in 30 East Drive.
And this place seemed to be almost the American equivalent of 30 East Drive, in that it was a poor family who lived in subsidized housing. In not that nice of an area.
And the same thing with the Enfield haunting.
Yeah, in Enfield. And the Enfield was...
No, it was also a council house.
Yes.
In a poor area with a poor family involved. Could this be a case of poltergeist activity? Which
by
is
stress.
Following the family? Or...
It could be. The thing that was resonating with me the whole time was, and we couldn't find any proof of this, and I don't know how you would find proof of this, was that the brother who was shot, could he be the spirit that's haunting the house?
That wasn't the only person who died. There was a little boy who died.
And stuff.
And
I think it's pretty powerful activity.
I will look at the evidence as well,
that.
See if I can find any evidence of this little boy and of that person's brother, because he didn't die in the house. He just stayed there and then died after.
Well, that seems what happens in the house. People get sick.
Yeah. So in terms of the fact that there's a lot of people who got sick afterwards, actually I found the newspaper article on the police captain before it was mentioned in the documentary, because I was looking for him just to make sure that he was credible and that he was actually a police officer in Gary, Indiana.
Yeah.
So I actually found that article and I posted it on Shadows of that man and what happened to him in 2015. So it was 3 years after it was filmed.
Yeah.
It was filmed 2012.
2012,
right?
yeah.
That he had been in a shooting. He wasn't fatally shot, but he was shot. But again, could that be the area that they were in? It's a pretty rough neighborhood.
Of course it's the area, and he's a police officer in that area.
So certain coincidences could attribute to that, but we don't know if that is the case. We don't know, because there seems to be a lot of people who were ill straight afterwards or a couple of years afterwards, and it seems to continually affect some people. What I've got to say is that I wonder if Zach Baggins is experiencing the effect of this up until this day.
Well, he says his eyes, it had affected his eyes.
Because the one thing about them, they don't protect themselves before going into this situation.
No, they don't. They don't put any shielding on them.
And my question is as well, why was Aaron not involved?
I think because Aaron got followed home from Bobby Mackey's, and he didn't want to put himself in that situation again, because that situation was really bad for him when it happened. I think he was smart, honestly. Yeah,
and they don't go into this situation spiritually protecting themselves.
Honestly, it was irresponsible. It was irresponsible. If that place is as dangerous as they say, to try to make entertainment out of it, him locking himself up in there, there's a lot of sensationalistic aspects of that film, which took away from the credibility of the stuff that was going on. And it's hard to understand what is real and what isn't real when you do that. The beginning quote saying, "This film is cursed."
Yeah.
And that you're going to get possessed just by watching it.
We'll see about that one,
Yeah,
shall we?
no kidding.
We know that hauntings don't actually work that way, that demons don't necessarily work that way, considering the amount of people who are going to watch that documentary. That, you know, not every single person is going to get affected by it in any way.
No, you got to go into the house itself. Or call on it.
What I thought was strange was that how the guy said that women were affected by physical things, by the spirit.
Yeah.
But men were affected electronically.
What does that even mean?
I have never known a case to react differently to different sexes.
Well, Dr. Barry Taff obviously had it do physically. That guy, the cameraman, it was physical.
The cop afterwards, something happened.
Yeah, happened to him.
Physical.
The guy who got cancer, that was physical.
I'm gonna say, first of all, I don't know if the family were credible witnesses. I don't think, I have never known a case ever of a boy climbing a wall. That's not credible.
Though 30 East Drive, the story is the person got pulled up the stairs.
Yeah. But, again, we don't know if that's credible.
No, we really don't. And, you know, you hear stories about that, but, you know, it's something you just got to experience.
It's like a rumour mill as well. Once something's out in the community, someone spreads the story from one person to another, and each time they're spreading the story, they're adding a little bit to it. I know that because I used to... The first time I started experiencing ghosts was in a flat in Debden, in Essex. And I had a little old lady visit me, and it was my first real experience with a spirit. And I was like 6 years old. But after... And she was fairly friendly. There was something else there, I think, as well. We had witnessed shadows moving on a wall. But after we moved out... After we moved out, rumours were going around in my community that a person had been pushed up the stairs. I don't know if that's true. I rarely hear a fact that kind of physical activity on anyone.
That's one of the things you see in horror films, but, I mean, it's pretty rare to even hear about stuff like that.
But it's a good case of how things can change from one person to another, especially in a small, close-knit community. So, you know, I've never experienced activity like that. And like I said, I've experienced activity since I was like 6. And I've seen all different kinds of hauntings. But I've never seen something like that. I've never witnessed something like that. And it would take a hell of a lot of energy for a spirit to do that.
It would have to be a really powerful spirit.
And the note that the investigation that Zach Baggins did on his own was only 15 minutes long. I could tell you it would be a lot longer if he had a lot more evidence on there. That's why it was so short, because he didn't get a lot of evidence.
Yeah.
And why did he go into that house with no investigation equipment? Where was his K2? Where was his EVP recorder? We didn't see him taking EVPs. We didn't hear any evidence being given of EVPs.
That whole scene was sensationalistic.
The
last 7 minutes of the movie was just sensationalism.
The one thing I did like about that is they brought in furniture.
Yeah.
And I think that was done, it wasn't mentioned, but I think it was done as trigger objects. So I kind of like that. That was pretty cool to refurnish the house. But it is extremely irresponsible to lock yourself in on your own in a haunted location that's supposed to have such huge damaging activity.
Yeah, you do not go by yourself into places like that. That is just plain stupid, and you're playing with fire. Always the rule of 2. 2 people go in. You know, you never, in a case like that, you don't part from each other at all. Let alone, I mean, okay, if you're investigating an old mill and there's the 2 of you, then if you fall through the floor, then someone can get help for you. If you go by yourself, then you're out of luck.
Mm-hmm. Just checking. Okay.
What you checking?
Checking if it got any comments, but no.
No, we got no comments. We're fine. No one's watching.
It's okay. I'll watch it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also about these kinds of hauntings that we experienced, again, I'm going to repeat it, 30 East Drive, is that you don't truly know the damage that it causes until after you've been to the location.
It follows you.
you don't necessarily feel it in the location. You don't.
Well, we did.
We felt uncomfortable, and I was kind of walking around dazed and everything, but it didn't affect the way we investigated. It wasn't like this massive thing, like you felt that you needed to leave straight away. It affects you gradually.
It was scary, but once you left the location, well, we had activity the day before, a couple of days before we even went in the place, in that town where we were in the hotel. The lights were flickering on and off.
We had activity, and we wondered if it knew we were coming.
Those type of hauntings often do.
They're very intelligent.
They're extremely intelligent and extremely malicious. When we left 30 East Drive and went to another hotel, is that when we were getting attacked left and right, and it was almost like it would cause this like horrible panic. And when we finally got
like a residue, it was like imagine like trying to walk and you've got this inky, yucky residue that's kind of pulling you back, and it's kind of pulling on your energy and making you feel drained. And I was acting slightly aggressive as well.
Yeah. And then we went back to your house, and then everyone in your house started fighting.
So, is it possible that this house had activity?
I think it could be.
It's a possibility, but I think that we need to look into the fact of carbon monoxide poisoning. It doesn't say anything from one moment to another about the carbon monoxide that was supposedly in the house. And we know that carbon monoxide can cause dizziness and nausea and behavioural issues. Not
to mention they said there was mold in the house.
Exactly.
And we don't know what the electromagnetic field was like in that house.
And we would hope that that issue was sorted out before Zach spent the night in there, because it's just irresponsible for your health, with your health,
Well, Zach can be very, very irresponsible at times.
Hot-headed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I guess we're still pretty unsure
we're on the fence here
of what to think. We recognise some of these symptoms that these people were experiencing. We've experienced them before, so it isn't completely...
Oh, when Barry Taff was using the EMF meter and going on Zach and getting the electromagnetic field on him, was going to the thing, you can see actually on Shadows when we went to go see a psychic, and Robyn was doing just that.
I think that sometimes when there's a lot of energy in a place, there are certain people who can hold that energy and absorb that energy, and I think that's probably what he was doing, and that's what I was doing in the past. I was going like this over the tri-field, not touching it, and every time I went like this, it was going up high. And she was a healer.
She was a healer. She was an
Reiki healer.
Reiki energy healer.
We were recording at the time to see whether or not healers give off more energy. And in that case, it kind of worked, but through me. So I think there are certain people who can hold that energy, who absorb that energy, but only for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm still pretty on the fence about this. I don't think that there was anything that was massively faked there. I think that they used a person that they don't normally use, and we don't know about him, and we haven't experienced him before.
Well, him seeing the goat figure, just I couldn't believe that. You hardly ever hear like cases like that, and especially demonic cases are usually like black cloud masses. But I mean, possible. Who knows?
The fact that that was mentioned at the beginning of filming, that Zach had a dream about this goat figure, and then this guy described this goat figure later on in the film. Could it be
script writing?
Script writing, or was it filmed at different times? Did they film the beginning at the end? That's always a possibility.
I'm sure. Yeah, that's very possible, because
timeline-wise,
film is filmed out of sequence and then put together by editors, and
but they should probably mention that for evidence sake.
I had a problem with the scene where it said it's the police footage. It had I went to film school back when I was younger, and the lighting was exactly the same as the rest of the film. And if it's really footage from some police tape, how could that be?
And I noticed there was a little line added to that footage just to make it look
old.
older.
Yeah.
When actually that line wouldn't happen in footage taken digitally.
Yeah, exactly.
It wouldn't, because that's kind of like a VCR thing that you would experience there.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that it was taken down after filming finished, it means that no other team can investigate. But again, on the same hand, he owns the house and it's up to him who investigates there. So it's not necessarily that case.
If it really screwed him up, and he feels responsible for the people who got screwed up because of this house, then I can understand him taking it down. But, you know, the skeptic in me says, you know, what if he just wanted to take it down so nobody else can film in it, or that
again,
there'll be no evidence of it, or whatever?
The fact that I brought up the fact that he owns it, but that's not going to stop somebody from breaking in and investigating that way, considering the neighbourhood.
Yeah.
But also, Zach, he's an investigator. He should know the fact that if you tear down this house, it's still in the earth.
So anything that builds there, it's
on the land. So if you build on that land, the house that you build is going to have an issue. But even without a house built on that land, that certain plot is going to have an issue, right?
Yeah. I found it interesting that in such a high crime area, that could be the cause of that activity. It's like almost like a coalescing of negative energy, like in one location.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like on 30 East Drive would be the same way. And Enfield Hunt case. Yeah, exactly. That maybe all the human suffering and the stress and the sorrow maybe makes a huge poltergeist effect.
It could.
Oh, thought form, honey. Thought form.
Could be. It could be. So we can't say for definitive. We were very skeptical.
we were gonna
watching. Yes.
We were gonna MST3K it. that was the plan.
But we can't necessarily do that. I'm gonna all the things that affected them during filming and after filming. We've heard that people were sick after filming. Isn't beyond the realm of possibility, and isn't beyond the realm of things that we have personally experienced.
Yeah.
But we would have liked to see more evidence, actual evidence, come out of this documentary. We would have liked to see EVPs. We would have seen more work with K2s. We would have liked to see audio and video and photographic evidence that you could get from this. I mean, our investigation of 30 East Drive brought more evidence than from one night that we were there than this documentary brought. So we didn't see any viable evidence from this. We saw emotional effects and behavioural effects.
I think that's how these spirits work.
And it is, but we still had physical things happen in 30 East Drive.
True.
The shadow, beyond a doubt, the shadow is the cameraman's hand. It's almost like he's pointing. Like that.
I don't believe that at all.
I'm not convinced that that's decent evidence at all, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I agree.
So I'm a little...
Yeah, I'm sad.
We came into it expecting to debunk the hell out of it. We can't necessarily do that because there's not much to debunk there. There's not a lot of evidence. It was really interesting, and you've got to praise him for doing his research properly and talking to witnesses. And
some of those recreations were really silly.
The curse bit, no.
Yeah, I was trying to figure that out.
They found a random sock.
Yeah.
A woman's fingernail, stuff buried underneath the dirt. If that was kind of a voodoo ritual or some kind of satanic ritual, it wouldn't be a random sock and a fingernail and a pan, right?
You could take like a sock or something because it's sympathetic magic and is connected to the person, and probably use a ritual like that. I'm not sure about the burying it in the dirt. It could be voodoo, but it doesn't sound like it. I think they're stretching here.
They also don't mention...
it would be, like, the panties would be wrapped up with something else. They'd be wrapped up, like, with maybe some needles or something, or something that has to do with that curse.
And not only that, but these items didn't seem to belong to the family that were there at the time. They didn't know that it was there. It didn't belong to them. So the curse wouldn't have been on them anyway. So it would not explain nothing to do with the house affecting them personally. It would affect some random other people. We don't know where. We don't know who.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, by desecrating the Bible, but it's not something that is normally done.
Also, a question.
Yeah.
Didn't mention the Bible and the crucifix that was on the table in the basement. They didn't mention where it come from. They didn't mention that it wasn't belonging to the family who were already there. They didn't ask members of the family. They didn't speak to the board member. They didn't ask members of the family about it. And that was kind of dropped. That subject was kind of dropped. We would want to know how it got there, how long it's been there, why it's there.
I'd imagine if you're having like severe activity in your house and you're very religious, that you would put crucifixes to try to ward off the things in a very religious area. So, I mean, I can totally understand that. Maybe the Bible is used as the same way as kind of a ward to keep whatever's in there in the basement. Because the boy was...
Our figuring, though, is that it was left there by that family.
Yeah, but wasn't it the family that their son got shot?
No. That was back in the 90s. He wasn't shot in the house.
No, he wasn't shot in the house.
He was shot after being in the house. But then again, it's a very rough area. It could be a complete coincidence that the guy was shot. Unfortunately, shootings happen a lot in certain urban areas.
Yeah.
You know, so it isn't much of a shock considering the gun violence in that particular place. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if there was that kind of activity, then they would probably... They brought a priest in to bless the place. He would have put holy oil on each of the windows.
You would anoint the windows.
You would anoint the windows with oil in the sign of the cross.
And the doorways.
Yeah.
That could absolutely explain why there was oil apparently dripping from the blinds. I was like, well, hold on, is that not what you do for protection
That's
anyway?
what you should, yeah.
Anoint it with oil.
Yeah,
oil on the blinds could completely make sense. Maybe they just forgot to mention the fact that the priest had been in and anointed the stuff, you know?
It's very possible.
That's the thing with Ghost Adventures. They omit certain things,
well,
you know.
It's entertainment. I mean...
They exaggerate certain things. I'm not saying that they go out downright faking evidence, because we've never seen any evidence of that fact. But we have seen evidence of the fact that they exaggerate things, and that could be the case here. But
saying there's demons in Asylum 49.
And the fact is that it's really irresponsible to call this a demon house when we didn't see evidence of a demon. But we have seen activity like that.
I don't think it's human. If it's legit, it is really freaking powerful, and like it's very similar to what is in 30 East Drive.
Yeah.
You know, so whatever it is, I don't know what it is. You know, demon is a label, and
I don't like that word.
I know you don't. I like inhuman spirit, but even that's a label. And honestly, we don't know what it is. I mean, we could be talking about extra-dimensional beings. We can be talking about all sorts of things that we don't even understand. I know Lloyd Auerbach said that most demonic hauntings are actually poltergeist cases in which the figures seen as demons are actually these metaphorical images that are created by the poltergeist agent's mind.
How they imagine it to be.
How they imagine it to be. But in this case, and in 30 East Drive, there's no one living in the frickin' house. Although in 30 East Drive, it's a tourist destination.
Just absorbing all of that energy,
yeah,
yes, as they come in
as they
and
come in
out.
out. Yeah.
It's like, it's almost as if all the investigations that go on 30 East Drive it's feeding it. So each time there's a new person, it's getting a bit stronger and a bit stronger.
Imagine a balloon. You're blowing into a balloon. It's getting bigger, bigger, and bigger and bigger. And every time someone goes in there, it's blowing into that balloon, and eventually it's going to pop.
Mm-hmm. It'd be an interesting research to be able to get in contact with people who have been to certain locations over a certain period of time, like a year, for everybody who's been there, and then to kind of check out the negative results of that.
I would love to.
And to see if there's something in it.
Well, there's certain people who will go in that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even when we were there, your friend was like really kind of nervous.
She didn't like going upstairs.
She didn't like going upstairs, yeah. So, that place makes people queasy. We've heard stories that people have broken legs there afterwards. But yeah, it would be interesting to poll a bunch of people who have spent the night there and see what negative effects they have, whether they got attacked, whether their families got attacked, because this is how these things operate. They don't usually attack just you. They go down to everyone you love and attack them. Not to mention they bring on bad luck. They do a lot of just awful things. And like I said, when we went back to your house, everybody in your house just started fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, I still don't know what to think.
I think it's probably half fact and half false.
Is there activity there? Is there an entity there? Then I'm kind of leaning towards there kind of is.
Yeah, I kind of am too.
Because of all the negative impact people have experienced after being in that house, or after experiencing and investigating that house. I'm kind of leaning to the fact that there is. We don't have a lot of evidence. There's not a lot of physical evidence of things that happened there. But psychologically and emotionally, Barry Taft was acting just the way I was.
Exactly the way she was.
In 30 East Drive. He just dazed and confused, and you're heading somewhere and you don't know where you're going, and you don't know why you're going there or why you're standing up. It's a really bizarre feeling.
Yeah.
So, do we think the demon house has activity? I think so.
Some kind. Yeah, unless they know their stuff though. They do know their stuff. So I mean, it could all be put on, but that part looked really familiar.
The reports of what happened to people afterwards seem pretty legit.
Yeah, it does.
And there are more.
Because we were looking at
by more than one.
And we were looking at newspaper articles. Yeah.
So, I think that all that time that Zach Baggins owned the house, he could have been investigating it every single night. Well, I would have been investigating it at least once a week.
I'm sure he was, actually.
So, what does that tell you? Does that tell you that he had no physical evidence to show? Because if he did have physical evidence, it would be in that documentary.
It may not manifest that way, though. It could be purely psychological.
Purely psychological, purely emotional, which is really a very difficult thing to prove. Physically is a very, very big thing to prove.
That kind of brings us to one thing. They used to tell you that you go ghost hunting, nothing can hurt you. And I've been learning that that's just not true. There are things that can hurt you, so you have to be careful. I mean, if you're just getting into this field, you need to protect yourself. Because if you don't, then bad things can happen to you. And, as we see, like, there are certain places, like the Laurie Mansion in New Orleans, that like Nick Cage bought, and then his whole career just got destroyed. People who went in there got in car accidents and things like that, and which is very similar to what happened in that demon house. So places of such extreme negativity can affect you and can affect the world around you.
The fact is, though, at 30 East Drive, you had the emotional damage afterwards and during, but we also had physical activity. Don't you think something that powerful can also cause physical activity?
Oh,
That's my question, is the fact that he owned this house for so long.
How long did he own it?
As an investigator, he would... Not sure, we'd have to check that, but as an investigator, you'd be naturally curious and naturally wanting to go in there and investigate straight away. That's what I would do.
Here's the thing. The 30 East Drive, we know for a fact that England is much more physical activity than anything else. That's
true.
In the U.S., it doesn't seem to be that way as much.
It's not as much physical activity.
Yeah, you rarely see things flying through the air.
We've seen it a couple of times, but we see it more in England.
It's very, very rare.
And here in New Zealand, actually.
That was like crazy residual stuff.
So, I think all in all, we're not going to say that it's not haunted. But again, I should point this out as an investigator myself. The fact that we can never 100% prove any of our evidence correct, simply because you don't know who's standing behind the camera. You don't know what certain people are doing to photographs to make it look spiritual.
Yeah.
As investigators, we can assure you that we don't do that. But you just don't know that for sure, right?
Especially
you don't
on
know
television.
that for sure with any investigator. Any evidence that you see online, video or whatever, be skeptical about it.
Try to recreate
because things can easily be faked nowadays. Photo editor is a friggin' nightmare. But yet, we don't fake our evidence because we're looking for truths. I don't consider our evidence to be evidence until we can completely debunk any other circumstances, environmental or other people, pipes and plumbing, and people above us, people below us, cars on the street. We try to make our investigations as clear and as honest as possible. But we can't attest for other investigators that they do the same.
Well, it's a thing of trust, and when you're doing television,
and it's a thing of profit when you're doing television.
Well, hold on, yeah. When you're on television, it's all about the entertainment, the wow factor, because ghost hunting's boring. I mean, really, it is. Sitting and watching people talk in the dark for hours on end is not exciting. So if you're watching something on TV, you want something to jump out at you. You want them to always get something, or it's boring. And often you don't get anything. It's like fishing. Watching fishing is boring. So the production companies will do everything to pump up whatever is going on.
And that would usually mean taking 12 hours of footage and putting it in 10 minutes with all the best bits.
Absolutely. Yeah, and editing, yeah.
So, we can't 100% say that this is real, and we can't 100% say that this is fake.
Well, can we say, do we recommend watching it? Is it something that people should watch?
I think from an educational perspective, it's worth watching.
The first, 25 minutes is a drag, man.
Do not expect to be entertained the way you get entertained in Ghost Adventures.
No, because the pacing is glacial. But when it hits, it starts telling what happened to everybody, that's interesting.
The research is fascinating.
Yeah.
They've done a good job as the fact that they've researched it. But for people who investigate as a living, they did not do a good job investigating it.
Yeah.
It's good for research, but the investigation bit...
Yeah.
Was he there? How many times had he investigated it prior to recording?
Who knows?
If he got evidence prior to recording, it would be included in the show.
Yeah.
We didn't see him doing any investigating. He didn't even have his spirit box out.
Yeah.
It was very strange that...
Well,
There's somebody who
you know
is-
what? Maybe a lot of that equipment isn't his, and it is owned by the production company.
I kind of doubt that.
Well, he has the money to get the equipment,
Mm-hmm.
but no, he didn't have any equipment. Dr. Barry Taft did.
That was the one bit of equipment that we saw.
Yeah, the one bit with the equipment he saw.
Trifield.
Trifield, and he had some like
Magnetic
geomagnetic meter or something.
we didn't know and we didn't recognise. It was probably another version of picking up electricity, right?
I don't know.
Was it what Barry had?
Yeah, it was what Barry had, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I mean, it's not the greatest movie in the world.
It's a documentary.
It's not going to blow your mind. If you're a Ghost Adventures fan, you're not going to get the same thrill because it's very different from Ghost Adventures. If you're a horror movie fan, it's not exactly scary, but it does show the negative effects of the paranormal, which is kind of important, and that's kind of my take on it.
But I have to say, I did read Zach's books. I have to say that he was well aware of the emotional factors that investigating can cause.
Oh,
So
yeah.
could he have just used his prior knowledge?
Yeah, I was
of
wondering that too.
To fake the emotional response that was happening in the demon house.
It's possible.
But does it explain the very coincidental health issues that some people experience?
Yeah, and you
afterwards?
can look that stuff up on newspapers. It's very coincidental, and it's like 4 or 5 people. Not to mention the Constantinos.
Which I don't think should have been mentioned.
I don't think so either.
So not going to mention.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would love to know what you guys think. Have you watched it? What your opinions were of what you think? Do you think that this place has actual activity? Do you think that it's a complete hoax?
And what do you think about the movie itself? Were you entertained by it? Was it something you would recommend to your friends? Did you enjoy it? Write down in the comments and tell us. So where are we going to be going? Hopefully tomorrow.
Hopefully tomorrow we're going to be at the Waitomo Caves.
Hi, Mac.
We're going to Waitomo Caves Hotel. And it's an interesting place.
It's considered the most haunted hotel in New Zealand.
As we keep on saying that, right? But this place has a history of being a fort back when the British were here, and a history of being a battleground between the Maori and the British. So actual battles were fought on the land that this hotel is at. So I'm quite excited about this location because it could give us some very interesting things. And hopefully we're going to be there tomorrow.
Yeah, we got to find a way to get there.
We've got to do that now.
Yeah, we're going to do that now once we get off. So anyways, we'll probably be on tomorrow if we're there, probably for about 2 nights.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get some stuff. We were really lucky at the Masonic in Napier. This place, that was the second most haunted place in New Zealand. This is number 1. So
we had some activity in the Prince's Gate too.
Yeah, a little bit.
Electrical.
A little bit.
So yeah, let us know what you think of it. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's definitely an experience. Let us know what you think of the Demon House. We're waiting to hear your comments.
Okay. Bye.
See you later.